Well, hello everyone, and I'm just checking the strength quality of the video. And once we are all here, I am going to start our session today. Okay, I think everything's working. All right, so thanks everyone for joining. And so this is the live stream where we talk about MLOps. All right, sorry about that. Okay, so welcome today, and this is a live stream where we talk about MLOps, or machine learning, and how to take machine learning solutions to back to reality, to make them into products, and we understand trends, tools, software, systems, in order to help us do that. Today, I wanted to keep it a shorter session, but I wanted to talk about some of the startups that are coming up in the area of MLOps. So MLOps is relatively a newer term. It's a newer area. I will also show you, if I do a keyword search of MLOps in LinkedIn, you will see that there are, at least in North America now, there are at least like 6,000, 8,000 jobs. So a lot of companies are actually now opening up MLOps engineer roles, which before the summer in 2021, it didn't even exist. And then there are a lot of communities in MLOps. So there's MLOps World, there's MLOps conferences. They are coming together to talk about more of the practices and of the different methods and means that these companies use, so that everybody learns from one another, and they take a shorter time to start from your machine learning algorithm and take it to production. So like I mentioned, today I wanted to focus a little more on the startups that have come up over the recent years. So let's dive straight into it. All right, so give me a minute. All right. So let's start with the first article. So I'm going to be showing a couple of articles today, and we're just going to be reviewing them in order to see what are the different patterns that do come up from there. So the first article, and I'm going to be posting all of these in the description box below, but this is actually this VentureBeat article. It talks about the state of MLOps in 2021, and it's very clear that MLOps is majorly being done by startups. And larger companies, they are still there. There might be one wing that is catering to MLOps, like Volvo Cars and autonomous drive. They have a whole team working on it. NVIDIA, there are definitely MLOps engineers role for hardware. But mostly, most of the experimentation or most of the work that is happening in the industry right now is happening in startups. So if you're really excited about MLOps, then a startup is where you should be at. And most of this is because the envisioned idea is data science means data scientists typically they work with Jupyter notebooks, and you start your algorithm on a Jupyter notebook and you end it on a Jupyter notebook. But the idea is you should be able to then deploy it so that you don't just end on a Jupyter notebook or on a demo, but you are essentially able to do more with it. So and someone else is able to utilize that. So there could be a morphing or a strategic move in the industry where data science rules then get morphed with MLOps so that the final goal is not just the Jupyter notebook, but actually a deployed solution. So let's look at some of the major MLOps startups that have been pointed out in this article. Like it's mentions, 88% of the state of MLOps are startups right now. And if you see some of the major names, Databricks, DataRobot, Algorithmia, and they have literally raised the most amount of funding in this case. Now Databricks is again pretty they've been around for quite some amount of time, and they were for one of the first few who actually started working on distributed compute. So if you wanted to do Spark, the MLlib library, it is incorporated into that platform. MLlib actually can come for free for starters. So if you just go to databricks.com and join the community edition, you can literally work for free. You do not even have to start up with paying anything. So you can get started for free. The Python notebooks you have to literally put into the online working dashboard that comes up. So on your web page you will have this online dashboard, and that's where your Python notebooks will be stored, and MLlib and everything can be automatically incorporated. So it is not something that you can install on your computer, but definitely AWS, GCP, Azure, they have Databricks inbuilt into their systems as well. And similarly, so most of these platforms that allow integration with different kinds of data sources, and that they can do distributed computing based off of the data resources, they have become super popular in this case. Then comes to data ops or data engineering. Now data engineering again is a big part of MLOps. Why? Because here we are talking about data not being collected just once, but it's an iterative process. So data has to become always going through the flow. It has to be continuously clean. It has to be always ensured that the data quality is good, it is pre-processed, it is stored, so such that storage retrieval becomes super important. So that's the reason why data engineering plays a huge part in MLOps. So again, data ops and data engineering, it is dominant in most of the companies right now. Amazon SageMaker, Google Vertex AI, they have been able to post a lot of solutions. So in both these cases, you can literally upload batches of data and expect annotated batches of data to come back. And again, there has been a huge boom in the number of annotation-based companies. Scale.ai is one of them. You get huge amount of volumes of data. If you send it, you can get annotated good quality quality control data back in batches. So all of that becomes part of this data ops or engineering processes. And most of the data, MLOps startups, they are concentrating on tabular data, because you'll barely see a new startup that comes up that is looking at image data, or it's looking at NLP, because typically the data is data streams. So if you're looking at, let's say, Target, Safeway, or some of the online shopping companies, even Amazon. So you will see that the data, it's always a CSV file where it is, this is the time a person logged in, this is what the products they were looking at, and this is, the final outcome of whatever they had. So this is the reason why most of the data that is pre-processed, and the pre-processing parts in most of the MLOps startups is they concentrate on on data like that. So one of the tools to do absolutely no code, or absolutely doing it without any amount of code, it is Trifacta. Trifacta is definitely a very strong software. Again, Trifacta is already integrated with AWS and GCP. It's actually called Data Prep. So what you do is you bring your data in, you import your data, and it will automatically find the columns that are non-relevant to your data, and it will remove them. It will find the columns that have too many nans in them, so it will remove them. So all of these things can now be done. So then there is a lot of push towards no code data pre-processing as well. I have always a higher preference on at least semi-supervised, but absolutely unsupervised no code data processing can be a little tricky, because if an error pops in, then you will have no way of catching it in future. So data pre-processing should be a part that is done very carefully, very cautiously, with multiple layers of quality control, so that whatever happens, you will be able to catch the flaw in the data right then and there. It's in order to catch an error in data in the next parts, when the ML pipeline or the deployment pipeline, it's really hard. And finally, MLOps is again a market ripe for private equity investors, because in this case, everybody is trying to look at what new company to invest in. So predictive learning, again, fintech, anomaly detection, all of this is super relevant problems, and that is the reason why the mid-sized MLOps company, like it says, mid-sized MLOps companies will begin buying the smaller ones to become more valuable to the larger larger companies, right? So that's the reason why currently there is a push at MLOps startups, because the expectation is, they will merge or collaborate with the mid-sized companies to be, desirable for the larger companies to then work on in future. So essentially, MLOps is a great place to be right now, because you do see there's a lot of funding, and this is very current. This is absolutely, this is last month's publication. So we know that this is current, and this definitely is one area where people could think about switching to. Then the other blog that I wanted to show you, this actually covers the 5 AI startup leading MLOps. And again, this is by InfoWorld. Again, this is in June. So very relevant and very recent articles. Now it says that the first startup in this case, it's weights and biases. So WNDB, as some people like to call it. Weights and biases, again, super useful for dashboarding. And whenever it can be combined with Colab, it can be combined with Jupyter Notebooks in GCP, wherever you call it. And it definitely can have, so some of the features are very similar to that of TensorBoard. So people who've used TensorFlow a lot, they might be sending a lot of details to TensorBoard. But then if you're using PyTorch, then in order for you to figure out where the epochs are at and where the performance is going on, and also for live or online monitoring, weights and biases is a super useful tool and platform to do that. So again, I highly recommend you check it out. Again, it has a free version for academic and research usage. You can literally get a lot of super cool plots. You just need to send the plots there, and all the plots get automatically generated for your life purposes. So the volume of the dashboards that you can get is much higher than anything else which is in conjunction with let's say a Colab setup. So if you're using TensorFlow, maybe you prefer TensorBoard, which is fine. But if you're using PyTorch or MXNet or anything else, weights and biases can become a super useful tool to use in that case. Seldon is another company. It offers open core offering, and the open source component. It is a cloud native way of deploying models. So in this case, you can do canary deployments, A/B testing, multi-arm bandit, and all of that XGBoost out of the box. So most of the MLOps companies, either they are focusing more on the data engineering part of it, like the cloud prep, data prep, like we talked about, or they are talking about the ML pipeline and the deployment pipeline, and to do a one-stop shop so that people don't really have to get into the nitty-gritty of what are the commands, how to do this from command line, but rather do it in a UI fashion. So it is, you don't really need to know the Kubernetes commands in order to do that. So for the modeling pipeline, you have TensorFlow, Scikit-learn, XGBoost. These are all of the libraries that you typically import in order to create your ML model. But what SaaS companies can do is make it super easy so that or hyperparameterization or coming up with the best model can become super easy. So SageMaker in AWS also has a similar offering. You can have all the linear learners, queue them up, and it'll tell you what the best learner is, and it will also deploy its endpoint. So it's something very similar. So it makes learning what the best model and the best hyperparameters is super easy. And also for deployment, like it mentioned, so canary deployments, A/B testing. So this is everything to do with Kubernetes. Once you're going from one version, so let's say you just deployed something with random forest, but now you're saying that maybe another classifier is better. So maybe boosted decision tree. So the next version, rolling out the V1 to V2, now it becomes super easy because the deployment is all done on Kubernetes cluster, and it's just one press of a button, which is invoking the commands that is happening in the background. So you just do hit the button, and the whole deployment pipeline get automatically created, and deployment happens. Aricto's Kubeflow is definitely they have come up with a lot of resources. There's Scale, there is MiniKF in order to create these output pipelines. So I highly recommend you check out Aricto's Kubeflow tutorials as well. Then the next one in this case, is called Pinecone or Xylix. And this is vector search is absolutely red hot right now. Everybody wants to know about where vector search is going. For instance, and it's actually got a great example, a search for Kleenex can return a retailer's selection of tissues without the need for any custom rules or synonym replacements as a language model used for vector embedding. So it will search the query space for similar area of a vector space. So this is super useful whenever you come to non-standard non-standard applications for machine learning. So NLP. So how would you go about, if you search one word, how would it know that you actually meant something else? So what is the best nearest vector space for the search to happen, so that you are returned with the best version of the search that you put in. So NLP again is a super hot area right now, and it's this company is specializing in NLP specifically, Pinecone and Xilex. And then there is grid.ai. Grid.ai is, again, it's going into PyTorch, because TensorFlow has its own, it has its own ecosystem of its own. So there's a lot of support, there's a lot of material already out there. But PyTorch, again, the support, it's relatively newer. So that's the reason why this is this popular high-level framework built on PyTorch that abstracts away standard PyTorch boilerplate and makes it easy to train over 1,000 GPUs with a couple of parameter switches. Again, it makes your ML pipeline and makes your deployment pipeline super easy to work with. So typically what happens whenever you're doing hyperparameterization search, grid search is a standard method, and that's what it simplifies the PyTorch Lightning and runs away with allowing the data scientist to train the model with transient GPU resources. And running the code as locally as possible, because running GPUs on servers can be challenging if you don't have it on your local system. So making that interface as seamless as possible, so that your work is fast and is, again, seamless is the word here. And then there is Data Robot. Data Robot I already mentioned, right? So it builds your own life cycle from data preparation, and the company makes a good pitch for it. So again, it is supposed to create the data pipeline. As you can see, there's a common thread here. Either the focus is on the ML pipeline, or it is on the data pipeline. So Data Robot, as the name suggests, it is actually working on the data part of it. So it's a web-based UI in which you can very easily clean, annotate, gather, and storage retrieval of data, clustering, cleaning patterns, and everything becomes very, very useful. So this would be very super useful whenever you're trying to figure out the drifts, right? So concept drift, data drift, in order to track for them. These are super useful. And again, it allows for distributed computing as well. It supports distributed computing as well. So Hadoop clusters can, as well as to deploy private and managed cloud offerings. So these are some of the upcoming MLOps companies. Like I mentioned, as you can see, the common thread is some have a focus around the data, some have a focus more around the application side or the ML and the deployment pipeline. Now, one of the companies that I have been speaking to, it's called nimbleboxai, and again, they are out of India. It's a full stack MLOps platform, and as again you can see that it's your data, your code, everything else, and it's a compatibility framework. So you can totally bring your own code, and this is a one-stop shop where you can definitely interface. You can have your Jupyter notebook, you can have Jupyter Lab, MLflow, file manager. So managing your projects becomes super easy because it is one place where you have everything, rather than saying that, okay, I have my data engineer is probably working with a Jupyter notebook, secluded. Then the ML engineers, they are working on Spider, and then everything is coming together in a GitHub. And then we are trying to figure out, is it Kale or Minikf, or what's the extensions that you're using in order to finally deploy. So this makes sure that everything is housed in one place, so that going from the algorithm to your deployment state with ONNX is super useful. And again, you can log in, you can sign up, and you can try it out for yourself to see. So there are great dashboards and everything built into it. But I think the biggest advantage of something like this is housing the whole project in one place. So the dev, data, ML deployment, everything staying in one place. That is a super useful resource for you to quickly try out your proof of concepts and see how easy it is to roll out something from your inception of an algorithm to final deployment phase. So that's today's session about the different kinds of MLOps startups and what is happening. I will stop share right now. All right. All right, so that is, all of the MLOps startups. Let's look at some of the questions. Hello, Venkatesan. It's great to see you here. Any mask RCNN tutorial planning? Mask RCNN, sure. I actually did a deployment on mask RCNN for object detection pretty recently. And again, it's a Colab notebook. And the Colab notebook, what it was doing is, again, it was detecting objects, bounding boxes, and it was also doing semantic segmentations inside for cars and pedestrians, right? But if you want something in detail, so if you would like me to cover everything from beginning, what the model is, how it is working on specific images, like if you're talking about medical images or anything, please do leave me a comment, and I can definitely plan something around that. The next video that I have actually planned is, I'm not sure if you noticed, I've changed my computer. So initially I was working on an Ubuntu, which was a System 76 laptop. My recent one, it is again using NVIDIA RTX 3070, but it's an MSI PC now. So what I wanted to do is to show how beginners could get started on on a Windows laptop for deep learning applications. So that is the next video that I have planned. Next question, web development versus data science job. I see this is very specific to regions, I would say. So for instance, in US, in the Bay Area, I would say the concentration of data science jobs, data engineering jobs, or MLOps jobs is higher. But I definitely see web development. They are nowadays they are called application engineers. And in application engineer, you require the same thing. They'll say Ruby on Rails, or C#, or something to do more with ensuring you can prep the web tools, right, in a proper fashion based off of whatever the company wants. I think the name has now morphed into application engineers. So if you're looking into web development jobs, then I think application engineering jobs would be something you can look at. Application engineering jobs, again, mostly it's more, you will work with UI UX engineers in order to ensure your front end is as seamless as possible. There's a lot of dashboarding that happens in the back end. You work with data analysts, but I definitely will say that the volumes of job, like Bay Area is an expensive place, so that's the reason why here you will have the the more sensitive, or the the one that require more skill a little bit more. But definitely application engineering roles are always there, but I would say it's very region dependent. All right, so you're saying an end-to-end mask RCNN would be highly useful. Sure, absolutely. So once I'm done with the getting started with your laptop, I can definitely do a end-to-end mask RCNN, so that we can go right from I will always highly recommend using the TensorFlow hub, because the TensorFlow hub already has pre-trained models, and that's where I started with. But retraining on top of that, and how we can do that very easily using maybe Google Vertex AI, I can show you that. And then maybe we switch from saying, okay, mask RCN, and we are working on maybe facial detections, and now if we move to medical images, how would that solution look like? So I can definitely get more in there. So absolutely, and thanks for sharing. Well, that's all for today. I'm hoping you liked this short, comprehensive talk about how MLOps, what's the state of MLOps right now, and how MLOps is the startup culture is happening, and how companies are working together in order to work more on the data engineering, in the ML engineering, and in the deployment phases. We have talked about Kubernetes and deployment in the past, but again, super important is always the project ideation. If the ideation phase is inaccurate, then it's not going to go anywhere. So I'm hoping ideation phase is what we give more importance to. And I think the end-to-end mask CNN will be a good example for us to work together on that one. So thank you, Venkatesan, for that. I don't see any other questions in the chat, so I will leave you, with this video today. Then, if there is any other areas you want me to, check out, please do, leave a comment on the video, and I will try my best to get to it. All right, thank you guys, and have a wonderful weekend. Thanks, guys. Bye.